this. Mach Tornado was a game changer. The Death Tornado Spin is a power exclusive to Crash 3 and is rewarded to the player for defeating Entropy at the end of the third warp room. This meant that the second half of the Crash 3 speedrun now had an advanced movement tech completely unique to itself. Crash 3 finally had something that set itself apart from his two predecessors, and now, all eyes were on it. On the same day that Mach Tornado was found, the first established champion of Crash 3 NST Any% made his debut, an English runner known as Diamond Dare. Diamond was already a well-established veteran of Crash speedruns, holding respectable times in all three of the original PS1 trilogy games, as well as the Wrath of Cortex and other PS1 classics like Spyro the Dragon. And with the field wide open with Crash 3 Any%, he decided to make his mark. Despite being done on the same day as Mach Tornado's discovery, Diamond's first submitted run doesn't actually make heavy use of it, only really taking advantage of it in the warp rooms and on the hills in level 25, Bug Light. This is understandable though, as the trick was still extremely new, and runners were still getting used to it. There are even several spots in Diamond's run where he tried to do it and didn't quite get the proper rhythm of inputs down. Even without it though, Diamond's movement was still much cleaner than those before him, and he was able to cleanly shave almost 7 minutes off of the record, with a final time of 56:30.
What?
Oh my god! It's a sub one time!
I beat it by exactly a minute. 1:09:59. Not bad.
It's a sub 110! Oh my god!
Ah! Try hard! World record!
No!
Try hard! Ah!
It's a world record.
It's not a PB. It's a world record.
It's a world record.
Ah!
That run was only the beginning, however, because the very next day, Diamond set another record. This run featured new innovations in the Entropy boss fight. On top of skipping the first phase of the fight, which Diamond actually didn't do in his first run, he was also able to skip the second phase by using a glitch high jump to go back to the starting platform before the blue tiles faded away. It was also discovered that you could skip the final phase of the fight by using a mask to damage abuse off of the energy sphere Entropy throws at you, and then clearing the remaining distance with a double jump. Diamond tries to do this third phase skip in the run, but flubs the movement and saves himself by simply jumping back to the original platform.
I saved it! I saved it! No! Ah! I saved it with the damage abuse.
Diamond also showed off much more control of Mach Tornado in this run, although his utilization of it was still mostly restricted to the Warp Room and Bug Light. Even with several accidental deaths scattered throughout the run, particularly in Warp 4, Diamond was still able to shave over 2 minutes off of his previous run, achieving a final time of 54:17. Diamond would follow this run up with another one the very next day, achieving a 53:09, and then yet another one on the day after that with a 51:40. The latter run also featured all three of the phase skips in the Entropy boss fight. Diamond's streak of daily world records ended here, however, with his 51:40 standing for 6 days until July 14th, when he achieved a 2-second PB of 51:38.
Defeated again. This is not fair.
Fuck's sake, man. I hate shit like this.
Nice big beach with a nice big drink and a woman with nice big bags of ice for my head.
Fuck your bags of ice. Fuck them. Shut them up your arse. I don't care.
Imagine being able to build anything just by thinking about it. Meet Base 44.
Before we continue, I want to briefly mention another development that had been going on at the same time. A well-known Crash glitch hunter by the name of Beta M had spent the days since the N. Sane Trilogy's release poking around in the Time Twister, trying to find a way to access later warp rooms early. On the same day that Mach Tornado had been discovered, Beta found a way. It's hard to explain, but I'll try my best. Basically, the prompt that allows you to have Coco either join or leave you is triggered by pressing R1, the same button that you use to crouch or slide. With perfect timing, you can slide away from Coco's laptop at the same time that you trigger the prompt. This puts you in a state where the prompt for Coco is active in the background, and you can constantly switch between having or not having her with you by pressing either up or down and X. And if you're on the platform that takes you to and from Warp Room 6 and you make this switch while crossing the invisible wall that stops you from going out of bounds, Coco becomes intangible. She loses the ability to jump when doing this, but with clever switching between her and Crash, you can go out of bounds and access any warp room early. Now, this sounds game-changing. All you have to do is get 5 relics to unlock the platform to Warp Room 6, do the clip to get into Warp Room 5, beat the 5 levels there, and then fight and beat Cortex, right? Why isn't this being used in runs? Well, unfortunately, Crash 3 doesn't work like that. Boss fights don't trigger based on what specific levels you've beaten, but rather how many crystals you have. Crystals are the game's main collectible, with one being found in each of the 25 main levels. Boss fights unlock for every 5 crystals you get. So let's say you get the crystals for the first 5 levels in Warp Room 1, beating the first boss, Tiny, along the way. Getting a crystal in a level is the only way to unlock their time trials, which reward you with relics, so clearing these levels is necessary. After that, you get the 5 relics to unlock Warp Room 6, and then use the gate clip to go to Warp Room 5. You get the 5 crystals in that warp room, putting your total count at 10. Despite the fact that you beat the 5 levels in the 5th warp room, you actually unlock the boss fight for Dingodile in the 2nd warp room, since that's what the 10th crystal triggers. In order to unlock the fight with Cortex, you must have all 25 crystals, so using Gate Clip to skip huge chunks of the game is sadly not possible. The Gate Clip was useful in the game's full completion category, but that's a story for a different video. As it stood, Gate Clip had no practical use in any percent. 5138 would be Diamond's last PB in Crash 3 any percent, and as of the recording of this video, it's also the last speedrun he's ever done. In 2 short weeks, he had taken almost 12 minutes off of the world record, but his time at the game was frenzy in order to have invincibility for Mach Tornado. He also lost a bit of time in Orange Asphalt due to crashing into this cop car. Still, he was able to close the run out and attain that sub 50 time. Roach, however, was far from satisfied. He now had his sights set on one more minute barrier, the sub 49. And Ratchet & Clank up your arsenal. However, he was also very fond of doing blind races with his friends, and one game they chose the FPS changes, but rather the introduction of a little level called Future Tense. Future Tense is an additional bonus level made specifically for the N. Sane Trilogy version of Crash 3, and was released at the same time as the multi-platform release. It's available immediately from the start and contains an additional 2 gems and a relic. So, why does this matter for any percent? Well, the platform that takes you to Future Tense is identical to the one that takes you to Warp Room 6. Remember that gate clip I mentioned earlier? With the introduction of Future Tense, the gate clip could now be performed without needing to first collect 5 crystals. This probably still doesn't sound that great, since you still can't fight Cortex without collecting all 25 crystals. But remember, the gate clip can be used to break into any warp room, not just for the purpose of getting to Cortex early, but also to access a warp room without fighting the boss required to open it. Dingodile and Entropy are both very quick fights that reward you with the double jump and death tornado spin respectively, 2 power-ups that were extremely critical to the run, so skipping them didn't seem worth it. The same could not be said, however, for Tiny and Engine. Both of these fights are incredibly long, and the power-ups they reward you with, the Super Body Slam and Fruit Bazooka, are borderline useless in an any percent speedrun, so skipping them saves a lot of time. It very quickly became apparent just how much of an impact on the run Gate Clip was going to have. On June 29th, 2018, the same day as the multi-platform release, Polish speedrunner Mick Crody used gate clips to skip both Tiny and Engine and achieved a time of 46:31, 9 seconds faster than J-Hobbs' long-standing record. This run was also done on PS4 as opposed to PC, and over time, faster setups and methods to perform the gate clip were labbed out. The only caveat was that for whatever reason, on the PC version of the game, these faster methods caused your screen to go completely black after the transition. The Warp Room 2 gate clip was very short, so this didn't affect it much, but a lot of the movement in the second gate clip to get into Warp Room 5 had to be done blind on PC. But these are speedrunners we're talking about. They weren't about to let a small roadblock stop them in the name of going fast. If it meant learning how to do gate clip blind, so be it. The addition of gate clip into any percent spurred Roach back into action. Still on PS4, he used both gate clips to achieve a time of 46:22 on June 30th, 2018, just one day after Crody set the first record with gate clip. He would then follow it up the very next day with a 45:08, eclipsing J-Hobbs' previous record by over a minute and a half. After this, Roach made the transition to PC. It had been known since that version's release that 60 FPS saved time due to how much easier Hobbs slides were, but the very subtle movement speed buff wasn't immediately picked up on by many runners. However, it had quickly become very apparent in Crash 2 just how much faster the PC version was, and it was about to become just as apparent in Crash 3. On July 5th, 2018, Roach began his first batch of PC runs. Right off the bat, you can immediately see how much easier Hobbs sliding had become, with him effortlessly performing one at the very beginning of the run, off of a lever right outside of the first warp room. He immediately follows this up with a string of Hobbs slides in Toad Village, at a rate of consistency never seen on PS4. The consistency and speed persisted throughout the entire remainder of the run, and in the end, Roach achieved a time of 43:42, completely shattering his run 4 days prior on the PS4, and completely skipping the 44-minute milestone. Just 2 days later, on July 7th, Roach would break yet another minute barrier, achieving a run of 42:38, 4 minutes had been shaved off of the run in just 1 week, and Roach wasn't ready to stop yet. He had his eyes set on one final goal, the sub 42. However, he had a competitor in the race for it. J. Hobbs had finally made his return too, and on July 10th, he achieved a new record of 42:10. They say history repeats itself, and in the case of Crash 3 Any%, it couldn't be any truer. Once again, the race for the next big record was between Roach and J. Hobbs. This time, it was Roach who came out on top. On July 14th, 2018, he achieved a new world record of 41:50, breaking the final minute barrier he sought after. It wouldn't take long for J. Hobbs to respond with a 41 of his own, getting a new record of 41:25 on July 25th, but Roach had decided that he had done all that he had set out to do. With the knowledge that he was the first person to break the sub 42 barrier, Roach took his final leave from the game. While the race between Roach and J. Hobbs raged on, another runner had been making strides in the background, a Norwegian runner by the name of Merkaz. Merkaz had been running the Insane Trilogy for a few months, having been inspired by J. Hobbs' AGDQ run at the beginning of the year. By the time of the PC version's release, he had managed to achieve a time of 48:37 on PS4, and with the switch to PC, he was looking to continue pushing himself forward. Surpassing J. Hobbs and Roach was going to be a tall order, but Merkaz had already proven himself capable in the short time he had been running, and if there was one thing he had, it was determination.
Fuck yes! The run wasn't even good.
Raising Cane's Chicken Fingers. One love.
World record? Fuck yes!
Fuck yeah!
Oh my god!
Fuck That is what I come back to.
What the fuck? Why the fuck is that
Yeah.
fight so slow? I was like, what the fuck is happening?
Yeah, it was so tense. I thought he was gonna like
RNG
die
was
or
horrible,
something.
but
I was
holy
so
fuck,
scared.
dude. Holy fuck, dude.
I knew you.
Dude,
Oh
fuck
my
yeah,
god.
word. World record.
Good shit, dude.
After a grueling 4-month grind, Merkaz managed to surpass both J-Hobbs and Roach and achieve a new world record of 41:17. Far from content with this time, however, he continued to push for another month, and on December 11th, he broke the record yet again with a time of 40:54, becoming the first person to ever get a sub 41 time.
Fuck yes! Ah! Yes! Holy fuck!
In the 5 months since the PC version's release, times that had been unthinkable back on PS4 had been achieved. 6 minutes had come off of the world record, and J-Hobbs' 46:40, a run considered legendary when it was set, looked like mere child's play compared to the times that were being set now. But the question was, could it go further? Could the game be beaten in less than 40 minutes? Was a 39-minute run possible? And who was it that the answer to that question lied with? Was it J-Hobbs, the veteran who always seemed to come back and push the goalpost further? Was it Merkaz, the newcomer who proved that he had what it takes to tango with the best of them? Or would it be someone else? Someone who had already proven their might in another game in the Insane trilogy, and was now looking to take, pulling far ahead. The release of Crash 7 Body's record, 1,091 days.
No way! No fucking way! No fucking way! Oh my god! Oh, what a hell of a run! What a fucking hell of a run! No fucking way! No way! This is insane! Bro!
As of the recording of this video, 3809 is the current world record, and while it might not be a 37, it is still a testament to just how far both Ravage as a runner and Crash 3 Any% as a category have come. After this PB, Ravage decided to take a short break from the category, but he's since returned to Crash 3 Any%, and I have no doubt in my mind that a 37-minute run will happen soon. And who knows, maybe there's even more time saved to find. Every time it seems like the well is run dry, something else pops up. Speedrunning is a big world, full of things to discover, and you never know what you'll find, whether by poking around with an idea, or just by complete accident. If there's anything about speedrunning that's an absolute truth, it's that someone, somehow, will find a way. Thanks for watching.
Did you drive yourself down to the hospital?
No, he drove me.
Was he supposed to come pick you up on Monday?
Yeah.
This is Kristen Jensen. A few
Why are there no new Mega Man games? During Capcom's 45th shareholders meeting, they hinted at ongoing plans for the Mega Man franchise, stating, "Mega Man is one of our highly valued IPs, and we are considering how to create games for it on an ongoing basis." So where are they, Capcom? While we've seen some retro compilations lately through Nintendo Switch Online, new Mega Man games have been rare. In the last 15 years, we've only had Mega Man 9, 10, and 11. They recently shared a survey asking which
This is when console repairs get it.
These mosquitoes were eating a factory worker alive on his shift, so he literally weaponized science to create a mosquito apocalypse. He basically slapped a massive industrial fan onto a bright UV light to make an efficient trap. See, nocturnal bugs use light to navigate, so the UV glow completely hijacks their brains, pulling them in like a tractor beam. Once they get close, the crazy airflow sucks them straight into the net, instantly dehydrating them. Would you ever try this in your backyard?
Hi, this is Lisa. How can I help?
Oh, really?
You can't imagine how invasive bamboo is.
Oh my god! Oh my god! Oh my god! Don't ever plant bamboo next to your house, okay? Because this is what can happen. Yeah, that's what you think it is. That's an interior wall.
Look at that, how it can just crack through concrete. That's an example if you plant bamboo nearby.
Most people underestimate how invasive bamboo is.
No!
So I labeled them out for you. You can look at where the ETBs are still in the box that they come in from Walmart.
Okay.
So you got all these from Walmart, or?
Yeah. Well, some kid that I helped sell, he got them from Walmart.
The perfect orders.
So
yeah,
you
these are
bought
unique.
most of these, or he bought some. I don't know shit about body.
Are these like scalped or like bought?
No, they're bought. But he bought them from the computer from Walmart.
Cause like we were trying to get like authentic. Like we don't do like
This is authentic.
scalper stuff. You know?
No, this is authentic. We paid regular price for them.
But you bought them.
He bought them.
So you're like they're bought.
I guess so, yeah. What's wrong with that?
Like, I didn't know these were
The boosters.
I didn't know.
Yeah, the boosters. These look
Can't really
good.
take product if it's like scalpers. You know what I'm saying?
Alright,
No scalper, no scalper.
I wish you would have told me that before I loaded this up, man.
Yeah, but like I didn't know it was like bought. Like botting is like the worst level of scalper.
Hey man, if you don't want to do it, then that's on you. But I didn't scalp these. I help them sell.
Damn, I didn't know they were botted though.
So what do you want to do?
You're gonna get a great price on all of it, regardless.
Yeah, but it's like the moral. It's like,
brother, everybody's doing that now. I can't even.
Everyone's
I
scalping
can't
now?
even get shit. Basically, yeah.
was scalping, no scalping.
I wish you would have asked me before.
I know the mainstreamers is really against scalping, so.
No.
I was
Okay,
like,
then
I was
just
like,
tell
bro,
him I told you that I posted up out Target with my kid. No, it's just.
That's lying.
Wish you would have asked me beforehand before I loaded all this up. So I labeled them out for you. You can look at where
you gotta.
Oh, he's almost dying, bro. You okay? Come on. Here you go.
Wanted somebody to push a button. Do you want more water? There you go. There you go. It's okay. You want some water? Look.
So I labeled them out for you. You can look at where
you gotta.
Oh, he's almost dying.
It's time to harvest some marshmallows from the garden, so let me show you how to grow marshmallow root.
This toy shotgun is so realistic. I want to see if we can load real shotgun shells into it. It's called the M870, made by Dart Armory. This is where I got it from. You can see these are the shells that it comes with. You put your darts inside and you go like this. Pump it in, fire it, then it ejects that shell, loads in the next round, you then fire, and you rinse and repeat over and over again. But right here I have my Mossberg 590. All the manipulations and controls are the same. I'm very surprised that the toy version actually has all the same functions. And I have a few rounds of 12 gauge here. We're gonna see if the toy gun will accept them. First up, loading it into the mag tube, we've got our first round, and it seemed to click in flawlessly. Now we got our second round, no problem. Third round, it seems to be retaining them in there perfectly. And fourth round, this is crazy. So first we're gonna pump this back. It dropped a shell down there. We're gonna slide this forward and it went into the chamber. You guys, I literally can't make this up. Dare I pull the trigger? Okay, so if we do this, it looks like it's a little bit weak on the ejection because these are a little bit heavier, but it loaded that next round in just fine. So absolutely wild, and I'm not kidding. These are real shotgun shells. So what do you think happens when we pull the trigger? This toy shotgun is so...
He doesn't look like much happened to him. If it did hit him, I mean, it definitely didn't stick in him because it was just laying on the ground.
What happens when you take the Block 17 to an actual indoor shooting range? Well, I gave one to my friend Deskpop to find out. And that pistolite, yeah, that wasn't my idea.
Hey, how's it going, man?
Good. Just looking for a lane to shoot on.
Sweet. Sounds like a plan. Do you have eyes and ear protection already?
I need eyes.
Okay.
I have ears. No targets.
No
Alright,
targets.
you guys allow big guns there, right?
Oh yeah, we shoot 50 BMG here, so that's no problem.
That's what I have for sure.
Right on, man. Yeah, I'm excited to hear that. Well, cool. All right, just have to scan a driver's license from you real quick. $10.21.
The hell is that?
What happens when you take the Block 17 to an actual in... Are you sick of your...
What?
Bro, you're the smallest bunny. Oh.
Look at those precious. Their eyes are open.
mutlu manaj olarak gösterelim. Hop. Ha? Allah canını alsın ya. Ben bunu
So I come out here to feed the baby bunnies, and I noticed something unusual. That is a wild baby bunny.
We know who's been eating my strawberries. Hey, you can have all of them.
This is so adorable.
Bro, you're the smallest bunny.
So whatever you do, don't put your finger on a ported handgun. What happens if you put your finger not
While strolling through a night market, the girl was bitten on the finger by a hamster that refused to let go. With no other choice, she bought it and took it home. Once home, she soothed it with some food, but to her surprise, it attempted an escape in the middle of the night. So, she immediately ordered supplies online and carefully set up a cozy little room for it. First, she laid down a thick layer of wooden bedding, sprinkled some deodorizing granules, and added small pieces of furniture. She placed a tiny bowl of bath sand, made sure there was a proper toilet area, and provided food along with chew toys. Finally, she decorated the space according to her own taste to make it beautiful. When the hamster was placed inside, it happily explored every corner. It was clear it loved the room she had prepared. Every day, she fed it different kinds of food, and over time, the hamster became more friendly toward her. It never bit her again, and even started to enjoy her gentle stroke.
I have a question.
Yeah, we speeding up, don't tell me slow it down, do it.
Want to meet new friends in a Christ-centered community?
I've been addicted to opioids for almost 28 years.
Some falls don't begin in the sky.
So we plant a few bombs, watch the canisters go boom.
Mine started a few weeks back. The sky was just the exit wound.
Hey, watch.
Welcome to public transit, bub.
It didn't seem like much at first. Wasn't even sure it was a case.
What you need is a big one. And this, Mr. Pepper, is the big one.
But I won't die, right? What? Something within me.
What we're seeing now is the beginning of disclosure, where it's now taken relatively seriously as a subject. Eventually, I think it's the acceptance by the public, ships being shown to us on purpose by ETs to allow us to take photographs more clearly, so that people can get used to the idea that this is real, this is happening, this is part of our reality now. And then eventually we will be literally physically introduced to a lot of the extraterrestrials that have been working with some people on Earth behind the scenes to help humanity evolve, to improve our technology, so on and so forth. The first phase of it would be the revelation of the extraterrestrial hybrids that actually have been living and working among us, and will be able to openly interact with them. In some time frame we can handle would be the introduction of the pure extraterrestrials, Pleiadians and so on and so forth, over whatever period of time we are able to sort of handle. Now, that doesn't mean I think everyone will necessarily react positively to this. I think there will be a number of different reactions in open contact or after open contact. By being exposed to the higher frequency of the extraterrestrials, not only will humanity over time be exhibiting more of the traits of extraterrestrials, like telepathy, like psychic functioning, but will also upgrade our frequency over time to the point where we can actually more easily communicate with spirit. So the whole idea of death will be irrelevant, because when somebody crosses over back into spirit and you can still communicate with them and see them and hear them.
Wow. In our lifetime, you think? Hey, I have a favor to ask you. If you appreciate these conversations, then thank you so much for subscribing to the channel. Daryl Anka, welcome back to the Wisdom from North show. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
It's so lovely seeing you again. We just met in Sedona, and I got the chance to see you channel Bashar for the first time in my life, and it was epic. And now I'm going to meet you again in San Diego at the San Diego Ascension Retreat. It's happening in September. You're doing your own talk, I'm doing my talk, and I'm truly looking forward to it. And for everyone who wants to join us, I'll drop a link below. However, Daryl, this is your first time on the show, and my audience seemed to really resonate with Bashar's teachings, and so do I. And especially so many Scandinavian Norwegians are like, oh, are you going to interview Daryl again? However, I'm going to introduce you for those who might not know your work. You are a world famous channeler of the extraterrestrial, physical extraterrestrial called Bashar, who exist in a parallel reality, and you've been doing so for more than 40 years.
Yeah.
And Bashar brings this multidimensional guidance and explains in detail how the universe works. However, not everyone might know that you are an award-winning screenplayer, a director, producer, you have your own film company, and you've been writing over 20 books. And I'm struggling with my one book that hasn't come out yet. So
well, to be fair, the 20 books, a lot of them are simply made from transcripts of what Bashar has talked about. So it's not like I'm sitting down and writing them. It's recorded, it's made into transcripts, and those transcripts are turned into books by other companies.
Anywho, you deserve the compliments, I think. Okay. I feel like. Well, Daryl, we're finding ourselves in interesting times, and as we're recording this, we just saw the second batch coming out from the US governments of the UFO files, the UAP files, and I'm very curious, and I think my audience is curious too about your thoughts about it. And on your website, you have a video where Bashar is saying, everything will change in 2027 and that open contact is imminent. So then I'm curious. So, what we're seeing now, what will be different in 2027 from what we're seeing now?
Well, my understanding is that we're talking about, what we're seeing now is the beginning of disclosure where it's now taken relatively seriously as a subject. That people are, government, Congress is having sessions with whistleblowers, with military people for the first time to allow them to tell people publicly what they've seen, what they've been involved in, without fear of losing their careers, without fear of being ridiculed. So just the fact that this is now being taken seriously is a huge sign that we're getting closer and closer to the idea of people releasing all the information that they have eventually about what's going on with UFOs and our involvement with ETs and so on and so forth. That's been going on for quite some time. Full disclosure would be the release of any and all information that isn't really considered a national security threat or anything involving all of that. And eventually, I think it's the acceptance by the public based on new photographs of UFOs and things like that that are clearer and clearer and clearer, ships being shown to us on purpose by ETs to allow us to take photographs more clearly, so that people can get used to the idea that this is real, this is happening, this is part of our reality now. And then eventually, we will be literally physically introduced to a lot of the extraterrestrials that have been working with some people on Earth behind the scenes to help humanity evolve, to improve our technology, so on and so forth. Because my understanding is that's been going on for quite some time. It's just not public knowledge that it's been going on. So full disclosure would include the idea of the release of public knowledge of the fact that ETs have been helping us behind the scenes in a number of ways for decades.
The gold is real, but so is the danger.
Come on, baby.
And do you think the governments will come out with that fact in 2027, or will it sort of be the people coming forward? And
well, it'll be both. It'll be both. Private, in a sense, investigative things, but also governmental. Like, in other words, official public announcements, official press conferences, official, sort of almost like a State of the Union address, and along with evidence. And I think my understanding is that the first phase of it would be the revelation of the extraterrestrial hybrids that actually have been living and working among us, who are not detectable as extraterrestrials. We will be told who they are, and we'll be able to openly interact with them. And then eventually, following that, in some time frame we can handle, would be the introduction of the pure extraterrestrials, Pleiadians and so on and so forth. And then other species, as everything unfolds over whatever period of time, whatever pace we are able to sort of handle. Now, that doesn't mean I think everyone will necessarily react positively to this. I think there will be a number of different reactions. I'm actually writing a book about that called Full Disclosure, as a speculation of all the different possible reactions that might happen, as a kind of preparation so people can kind of get a handle and a heads up on how different people, different groups might react to the knowledge of the ET presence. So I'm working on that right now. But I do think a lot of it will be official release of the information, because it's really way past time for that to happen. And again, we tend to forget or not think about the fact that a lot of this is sort of handled and governed and controlled by the ET side too. It's not just the human side. The ETs can also decide it's now time, and there's really kind of nothing you can do to stop us from revealing ourselves at this point. Again, they'll do it at a pace we can handle. They're not going to force anything on anyone. But we're going to be given the option to understand that this is now another choice that humanity can take advantage of, is to interact with extraterrestrials who can help us evolve more quickly. So it won't be forced, but it will be a choice.
I mean, I'm getting goosebumps because I've had this channel ever since 2012, where I think there was a big shift, and we've been talking about it, talking about it, talking about it, and I'm sitting here in May, and it's happening. Like, we're not ridiculed anymore, and that's a huge step just there. I mean, I want to say hooray for just that.
Yeah, well, that's what I mean. The fact that that's happening is a massive change in our approach to this subject. And that's a really strong and positive sign that disclosure, full disclosure, is really about to happen, is in progress, is happening. We're in the early stages of it. And look at programs, like Skinwalker Ranch and things like that are scientifically starting to discover things like portals and other kinds of advanced technologies that are popping up on the ranch that indicate the presence perhaps of extraterrestrial technology in the past. So, there are different things converging kind of at the same time, almost on a scheduled release from different sources of different kinds of information, all of which can come together to create a definitive statement of, look, folks, here's all the evidence. Here we are actually involved with extraterrestrials and have been for some time.
And then I get curious about these hybrids, and I was going to ask you about it. How do they look like for that person out there who's like, what is a hybrid? I don't understand. Could you explain what hybrids are, and sort of have you met one? Have we met them, but we don't know that? No.
You may have crossed paths, you may have seen them, glimpsed them now and then, but remember, they have the capacity to sort of turn you away and make you kind of forget that you saw something. You might say, oh, well, I saw this person walking down the street and there was just something really different and odd about them. I can't quite place it. It just didn't, it felt like they just didn't belong here or something. But then you just kind of like, I remember now, I have to go do this thing. So they have a way telepathically of turning you away from recognizing them. But they look very much like us. A hybrid is basically an extraterrestrial being that has been created with extraterrestrial and human genetics. So they look enough like us that they can mingle among us, but they also give off an energy that we might find unusual or different. And these are beings that are not born on this planet. They are brought here and mingle in society in a number of different ways and work with certain scientists and certain officials on certain kinds of projects to help humanity forward, but all behind the scenes. So, as I said, the first step, as I understand it, in open contact and full disclosure is for the public to be told who these hybrids are, where they are, what they've been doing. And then from that point forward, we can actually start interacting with them openly.
Hello. Are you want to play with me? Sure. You want me to help you with your groceries? Yeah. This journey with childhood cancer.
And I get very curious how an interaction would be like if the two of us in San Diego would meet up and all of a sudden in a few years we would meet a hybrid. How would that
My name's Wayne Roberts, and for the last 11 months, I've worked at Disneyland, Ohio. If you've never been to Northern Ohio before, there's one thing you should understand first. Some people joke about Ohio online. Cornfields, flat roads, whatever. But up near Lake Erie, different story, especially in the summer. Every year, millions of people drive north towards Sandusky for Cedar Point. Families from Cleveland, teenagers from Columbus, guys from Michigan riding motorcycles up Route 2 with girlfriends hanging onto their backs. You see license plates from everywhere once June hits. Pennsylvania, Indiana, Kentucky, sometimes even Florida. And honestly, I get it. Cedar Point's incredible. You ever ride Millennium Force at night with a lake wind hitting your face at 90 miles an hour? You'll understand immediately why people love that place. Steel Vengeance feels like the tracks are trying to kill you. Maverick launches so hard it punches the air out of your lungs. Even Top Thrill Dragster, when it was running right, it sounded like a fighter jet taking off every few minutes. Whole place smells like sunscreen, lake water, engine grease, and funnel cakes. As a kid, I loved it there. My dad used to drive me up from Cleveland every August before school started again. We'd leave at like 6 in the morning to beat traffic, stop at some gas station off Route 6 for coffee and donuts, then spend 12 straight hours walking the park until my legs felt like concrete. That was the good version of Northern Ohio. The normal version. What most people don't know is that if you keep driving north late enough, really late, you can find another amusement park out there. And trust me, it's a hell of a lot scarier than Cedar Point. I found it by accident. At least I think I did. Last year, I was broke. I mean, completely broke. I'd been bouncing between jobs around Cleveland for almost 2 years after getting laid off from a warehouse near Brook Park. I worked overnight stocking in a grocery store for a while, then drove a forklift at a shipping center outside Elyria. Did some landscaping one summer. None of it stuck. Every job either paid garbage or cut hours the second business slowed down. By October, I was behind on rent, my truck needed brakes, and my checking account was sitting at negative $204. And that's when I saw the listing. It wasn't online normally. I found it buried on some weird local hiring board while scrolling through overnight jobs at like 2 in the morning. No company logo, no photos, just a blank screen with white text. Overnight park operations, Sandusky region, midnight to 5 a.m. Transportation required. Excellent pay. That was it. No business name, no details. But the pay listed underneath was insane. Almost triple what I've been making at the warehouse. I figured it was some kind of seasonal Halloween attraction. Maybe one of those haunted amusement parks that hire actors and cleanup crews during October. I applied immediately. No interview, no resume request. About an hour later, I got an email with a location pin and one sentence. Arrive at 11:45 p.m. Do not be late. That should have been enough warning right there. but when you're broke enough, your brain starts ignoring red flags. The drive took about an hour, hour and a half from Cleveland. I remember most of it because the whole night felt strange even before I got there. The roads got emptier the farther north I drove. Once I got past Sandusky, traffic basically disappeared completely. Just long stretches of dark highway cutting through fog, drifting off Lake Erie. Every now and then I'd pass some old motel with half the lights burned out, or a closed bait shop sitting empty near the lake. The fog kept getting thicker too. Not normal fog either. Stuff looked heavy and dense, like smoke rolling across the asphalt. Around 11:40 p.m., my GPS started glitching, screen flickering, route disappearing and reappearing, and then the map just froze completely. And that's when I saw the lights. At first, I honestly thought it was Cedar Point off in the distance. I could see glowing towers through the fog and hear faint music somewhere ahead. But the closer I got, the more wrong it looked. The lights were different colors. Not bright amusement park lights either. Softer. Older looking somehow. And then I saw the gate. Massive iron rising out of the fog beside the road, with giant glowing letters overhead. Disneyland, Ohio. I actually laughed out loud when I saw it. Thought it had to be some kind of joke. Because obviously everybody knows there's no Disneyland in Ohio. But after I'd worked there a while, Shane finally explained the name to me. According to him, Disneyland, Ohio was built in 1915 along Lake Erie, decades before the real Disneyland. He said this place was the original idea. A park built for ghosts, monsters, demons, and the dead. One night I asked him why they called it Disneyland at all. Shane just shrugged and lit another cigarette. And then he told me people around Sandusky had theories about the place for decades. Occult groups, Freemasons. Some even claim the Disney family had ties to circles like that, and that Walt Disney himself was involved with Freemasons and other secretive groups interested in the occult. None of it was ever proven, but according to Shane, Disneyland, Ohio came first, and that Walt Disney knew about it. More than that, some believed he based his entire Disneyland off the original park built along Lake Erie back in 1915. I asked him if he actually believed any of that. He stared out toward the castle for a few seconds before answering. After working here, I think people know a lot more about monsters than they pretend to. And honestly, after everything I've seen, I'm not completely sure Shane was wrong. Because the first time I pulled into the parking lot, I realized something was very off. The parking lot was full. Not just crowded, full. Thousands of cars. Except most of them looked old. Really old. Rust-covered station wagons. Huge Cadillacs from the 50s. Burned-up pickup trucks. An ambulance with shattered windows. I even saw what looked like an old hearse parked crooked near the entrance. And the people walking toward the gates. At first they looked normal. Then I started noticing things. A woman in a wedding dress, with half her face burned black. A little boy carrying a balloon with muddy water dripping from his clothes. An old man in a Confederate uniform, smoking a cigarette, with a hole straight through his neck. Nobody acted strange about it. They just walked calmly toward the park entrance while old carnival music echoed through the fog. And then I saw Elvis. I swear. White jumpsuit, black hair, standing near a popcorn cart talking to two women dressed like they'd stepped out of the 1940s. And that's when I almost got back in my truck and left. But before I could, somebody knocked on my window. I jumped so hard I hit my knee on the steering column. A skinny guy in a yellow employee jacket stood outside holding a clipboard and smoking a cigarette. "You, Wayne Roberts?" I rolled the window down slowly. "Yes." Well, you're late. I looked at the clock. 11:46 p.m. By 1 minute, I said. Yeah, still late. And that was my first time meeting Shane Phillips. Looked exhausted. Gray skin, bags under his eyes. Smelled like cigarettes and coffee. He opened my truck door before I could answer. All right, come on, shift starts at midnight. As we walked toward the gates, I kept staring at the guests. Some looked normal, some definitely weren't. I saw a woman floating 3 inches above the pavement near the ticket booths. I saw a tall man with completely black eyes laughing behind a hot dog stand. Saw someone with antlers disappear behind one of the Midway games. Nobody else reacted. Nobody screamed. The entire place operated like a completely normal amusement park. The castle at the center of the park glowed pale blue through the fog, while rides clattered somewhere in the distance. Roller coasters roared overhead. Ferris wheels turned slowly against the clouds. Music echoed from hidden speakers. And mixed into all of it was the smell of popcorn, lake water, and machine grease. And something rotten underneath. Shane led me backstage through an employee gate beside the entrance tunnel. And back there everything looked older. Concrete walls stained dark from moisture. Employee lockers covered in scratch marks. A break room coffee machine that looked much, much older than me. Shane opened a metal locker and tossed me a yellow employee jacket. And then he handed me a laminated card. Read it. I looked down. 6 rules. That was it. No welcome packet or training manual, just 6 rules. I started laughing again because, honestly, I thought this still had to be some kind of elaborate haunted house attraction. And then Shane looked me dead in the eyes and said, most employees quit after the first night. Smart ones follow the rules. Rule 1. Always seat loved ones together. That was the first real rule I learned at Disneyland, Ohio. Because until you work Widow's Run for a few nights, you don't understand what kind of place that park actually is. Most people think the dead would act scary all the time, violent, angry, like zombies or something. And that's not how most of them are. Honestly, most of them just act like people on vacation. They laugh, they eat, they ride rides. Some hold hands walking through the Midway. Some carry giant stuffed animals from game booths. Some stand in line, arguing over food like normal couples at Cedar Point. It's unsettling. It feels too normal. And nowhere felt more normal than Widow's Run. The coaster sat near the back of the park, beside the lakefront section. Huge wooden structure towering over the fog with pale blue lights running along the tracks. Every few seconds you'd hear the wood groan and the chains rattle up the first hill. The trains looked old too. Not modern roller coaster trains. These looked like something from the 1940s or earlier. Heavy lap bars, brass trim, dark wood paneling along the sides. And every single train was full of dead people sitting right beside someone they loved. That was the important part. Always beside someone. Shane assigned me there my second night. Hey, you'll shadow Craig, he said. Craig White was probably in his late 50s. Big guy, gray mustache. Wore the yellow employee jacket over an old Browns hoodie every night, like he'd stopped caring years ago. He smoked constantly. First thing he said to me was, "Hey, you know how to count?" "Yeah," I said. "All right, good, then you're qualified." That was basically my training. Widow's Run had 1 loading station and 2 trains cycling constantly through the fog above the Midway. Most of the guests there were ghosts. Families mostly. Couples too. And honestly, when they sat together, the ride was probably the happiest place in the entire park. I'm serious. You'd hear laughing all night long there. Not creepy laughing either, real laughing. I saw an old man smoking a cigar next to a woman in a blue dress while the train climbed the first hill. Saw little kids screaming excitedly beside parents. Saw teenagers holding hands. One little ghost boy rode that coaster 6 times in a row with his older brother, and every single time they came back laughing hysterically. And for a while, I actually forgot where I was working. And then I noticed something strange. Every ride operator at Widow's Run checked seating assignments obsessively. Not restraints, not lap bars, seating. Craig would literally stop the train dispatch if somebody boarded the wrong row. Move him beside her. No, not there, together. Kid rides with mother. Over and over. Eventually I asked why, and Craig looked at me like I was very stupid. And then he pointed towards the tracks overhead. You separate dead people from the folks they love, and they stop acting like guests. That was all he said at first, and a few hours later I learned what he meant. Happened around 1:30 in the morning. Busy night too. Fog rolling through the midway, Ferris wheel glowing through the mist, old carnival music echoing everywhere. A family of 4 came through the Widow's Run entrance line. Mother, father, 2 little girls. All ghost. You could tell because their clothes were soaked black like they'd climbed out of Lake Erie. Water dripped off the father's sleeves every few seconds, right onto the platform. The younger daughter looked maybe 6 years old. The older one, maybe 10. They all stayed very close together. Craig immediately pointed toward the front row. "Whole family rows 1 and 2, he said. Simple enough. But while I was checking lap bars, another group boarded behind them, and for a second things got mixed up. One of the little girls ended up seated 3 rows behind her parents, beside an empty seat. The second Craig saw it, he grabbed my shoulder hard enough to hurt. "Fix it," he said. I didn't understand the urgency, and then I looked at the little girl, and she was not smiling anymore. Neither were the parents. The station suddenly felt colder, like somebody opened a walk-in freezer somewhere nearby. The little girl stared toward her parents silently. The mother stood halfway up from her seat, and every other guest on the train slowly stopped moving, like somebody hit pause. The lap bars suddenly slammed downward on their own with a loud metallic clank. Several guests turned toward me at the same time. None blinking or smiling anymore. Craig shoved me forward. I hurried down the platform and unlatched the restraint. The second the girl climbed back beside her mother, everything changed instantly. The temperature normalized. The guest relaxed. The father wrapped his arm around both daughters. And then the entire train started laughing again, like nothing had happened. Craig dispatched the ride immediately, and the train vanished into the fog above the midway. I stood there staring after it. "What the hell was that?" I asked. Craig lit another cigarette. "You ever lose somebody?" he asked. "Yeah, my brother," I said. Craig nodded once. "Well, imagine dying. Then somebody separates you from the only person you wanted to spend eternity with." The coaster roared overhead through the fog, blue lights flashing across the wood beams. Way farther down the midway, I could hear demons screaming on another run, but Widow's Run sounded different, happier, like a normal amusement park. Craig smoked quietly for a minute before speaking again. "You know, most of these people come here because they miss life. They miss, birthdays, summers, family vacations, little moments." Another train rolled into the station carrying Laughing Ghost. A little boy jumped out excitedly, pointing back toward the tracks while his mother laughed beside him. Craig nodded toward them, This place gives them some of that back, he said. And that was when I finally understood why the rule mattered so much. Not because the ghosts were evil, but because they had emotion. Because some part of them still remembered what it felt like to lose somebody. And if you reminded them of that loss, things got dangerous fast. About an hour later, Craig finally told me about Randy Burke. Randy had worked Widow's Run 3 summers earlier. Young guy, early 20s, didn't take the rules seriously. Well, one busy night he separated an older couple because the train needed balancing weight across the rows. The husband ended up in row 6, the wife row 9. At first nothing happened. Train dispatched normally, climbed first hill, and then the ride stopped. Not emergency stopped either. Just paused right at the top. Craig said every guest on the train slowly turned toward the station, all of them staring directly at Randy. Then the ride started again. When the train came back, the husband was gone. Empty seat. Lap bar still locked. The wife was hysterical. She kept asking where her husband went. Craig said Randy spent the rest of the night shaking. And next shift, he was just gone. Management never explained anything, and nobody ever found out what happened to him. They just assigned another operator to Widow's Run and kept the ride moving. And that was Disneyland, Ohio. No investigations or police tape or grieving counselors, just another shift, another rule. Well, around 4:30 a.m., the fog near the tracks started getting thinner. And that meant sunrise was getting close. The guests started looking calmer near dawn, more peaceful almost. One older couple rode the coaster 3 times in a row, holding hands the entire time. The husband tipped his hat to me after the last ride. "Wonderful evening, isn't it?" he said politely. And then they disappeared into the crowd. Craig finished another cigarette and crushed it beneath his boot. "You know the mistake people make about this place?" "What?" I asked. He watched another train climb into the fog above us. "They think the only dangerous ones are the demons." The coaster rattled somewhere overhead. Cold wind blowing in off Lake Erie. Craig looked back toward the loading station, where another ghost family waited together near the gate. And then he said quietly, "Death already took enough from these people. Don't take more."
Apple Card is a no-fee credit card that you can apply for right from the Wallet app on your iPhone. Subject to credit approval. Variable APRs for Apple Card range from 17.49% to 27.74% based on creditworthiness. Rates as of January 1st, 2026. Existing customers can view their variable APR in the Wallet app or at card.apple.com. Apple Card issued by Goldman Sachs Bank USA, Salt Lake City branch. Terms and more at applecard.com.
Rule 2. Always stay behind the glass on the demon drop. The second rule at Disneyland, Ohio, was the one everybody talked about backstage. Not Widow's Run or the Banshees, not even the Grim Reaper. The demon drop. Every employee in the park hated working that ride. Even Shane. The demon drop was different. You could feel something wrong with that ride before you even saw it. The first time I walked toward it, I smelled sulfur halfway across the midway. Not a little either, it was strong. Like burned wires mixed with fireworks and rotten eggs. The ride towered over the entire park near the lakefront cliffs. Massive black steel structure disappearing into the fog overhead, with glowing red lights running vertically up the supports. And yes, the actual ride was called the Demon Drop. The thing stood exactly 666 feet tall. I know because somebody had welded the number directly onto the front gate in huge rusted red metal numbers. 666 feet. Very subtle. The ride vehicles looked like giant iron cages hanging from thick black rails. Every few seconds, one would slowly climb toward the top while passengers screamed and laughed inside. Except the passengers weren't human. Not most of them, anyway. Demons loved the demon drop. I still don't know why. Maybe because of the fear or the height. Maybe because 666 feet meant something to them. Whatever the reason, the ride was packed every night. Some of the demons looked almost normal. Others absolutely did not. I saw one with burned skin hanging off its jaw, sitting calmly beside what looked like a businessman from the 1980s. Another had tiny horns pushing through its forehead, while black smoke drifted from its nostrils every time it breathed. And every single one of them smiled too much. Way too much smiling. Shane brought me there my fourth shift. The operator booth sat beside the loading platform, surrounded by thick reinforced glass walls bolted into concrete. 3 separate locks on the door. Heavy steel framing. Emergency switches everywhere. The whole thing looked less like a ride booth and more like a prison guard station. Shane handed me a radio. "All right, simple job. You load the ride, check restraints, operate controls, and you listen to me. You never leave the booth once the ride starts boarding. You understand me?" He pointed toward the laminated rule card hanging beside the controls. "Always stay behind the glass." Then he lit a cigarette. "You understand?" "Yeah," I said. "But why?" Shane looked out toward the loading platform, where a demon in a tuxedo was laughing with something that had no eyes. "Because they'll try to get you outside." That was the entire explanation. Well, at first the ride honestly didn't seem that bad. Creepy, absolutely, but manageable. The demons mostly acted like drunk theme park guests. Loud, annoying, sometimes aggressive, but still functional. You checked restraints through a sliding inspection panel in the glass. Once everybody was locked in, you sealed the booth door completely and operated everything from inside. Easy enough. And then I started noticing the voices. That's the first thing everybody notices, I've heard. They always sounded real. During my first shift at the demon drop, I heard somebody knocking on the outside glass about 20 minutes after midnight. Soft tapping. I looked up and saw an elderly woman standing outside the booth, clutching her chest. "I can't breathe. Please help me." She looked completely human. Tiny old lady wearing a green sweater and glasses. I instinctively stood up. The second I touched the booth handle, Shane grabbed the back of my jacket. Hard. "Sit down," he said. The old woman outside immediately stopped acting afraid. Her expression changed instantly. The fear vanished, and she smiled. Her mouth stretched wider than it should have been able to. Way wider. Like skin pulling apart at the corners. Shane stared at her through the glass while smoking, then looked back at me. "She almost got you on day one." The woman laughed softly, then walked calmly toward the ride entrance where another train was already loading. And that was the moment I realized the demons weren't just dangerous, they were patient. They liked the game. Over the next few shifts, I saw all kinds of tricks. A little boy crying beside the ride gate, saying he lost his parents. a middle-aged man screaming that his restraint wouldn't lock, a woman claiming another guest attacked her. Every single one fake, always fake, and every single trick had one goal: get the operator outside the glass. That was where Freddie Williams messed up. I heard his story from Craig during break around 2 a.m. one night. We were sitting backstage near the maintenance tunnels, drinking burnt coffee from paper cups, while the midway music echoed faintly outside. Craig smoked while staring at the floor. Yeah, kid was 19. Good kid, too, he said. Freddie had started during Halloween season 2 years earlier. First week on the job, management assigned him to the demon drop because they were short-staffed. Craig shook his head while telling the story. Never should have happened, he said. According to him, Freddie took the rules seriously. At first. But the demons learn people fast. They study you. Figure out what kind of person you are. Freddie's mistake was caring too much. About halfway through the shift, one of the trains loaded normally, mostly demons on board. And then Freddie heard a little girl crying near the front row. Craig said she looked around 8 years old. Blonde hair, pink jacket, small enough that she looked completely harmless. She kept tugging at her restraint. Sir, my seatbelt won't lock. Freddie checked the control panel. Everything showed green. Ride timer already counting down. 10 seconds. He tried shutting down the ride, but the timer kept going. He told her to stay calm, and then she started panicking harder. Please help me. I'm scared. Craig stared into his coffee while telling me this part. Damn kid forgot where he was, he said. The countdown hit 5 seconds. Other employees started yelling at Freddie over the radio. Do not open the door. Do not go outside. But Freddie panicked. He stepped outside the glass, and the second his foot touched the platform, the little girl grabbed his wrist. She changed immediately. The girl's smile stretched wide across her face, eyes completely black. And then the ride dropped 666 feet. Craig said Freddie screamed the entire way down, and the demons on board laughed the whole time. I wish I could say management shut the ride down after that. They didn't. They stopped operations for maybe 20 minutes. That was it. Maintenance crews washed the ground. New operator took over. Ride reopened. Disneyland, Ohio in a nutshell. I actually saw some of the cleanup photos later in the maintenance office. Blood sprayed across the underside of the restraints. Pieces of yellow employee jacket hanging from support rails. Bent radio, covered in dark stains. One picture showed a demon smiling directly into the camera while holding what looked like Freddie's name tag. Somebody had written "file closed" across the bottom in red marker. And that story sat in my head every single time I worked the ride afterward, especially because the demons got smarter once they realized I knew the rules. The tricks became more personal. One shift, I heard my mother's voice outside the booth. I slowly looked toward the window. Something stood outside in the fog. Not fully visible, just a shape. Demons inside the ride cages started grinning at me. All of them. Every single one staring directly at the booth now. The glass slowly started fogging from the outside. I could hear scratching now, too. Tiny scratching sounds dragging across the metal walls. The demons started laughing quietly. And about 30 seconds later, everything stopped at once. The fog cleared from the glass. Nothing outside anymore. The demons all looked disappointed. One near the front row actually gave me a little nod like I'd passed some kind of test. And then the ride timer beeped, and the demon drop screamed downward into the fog. Later that night, Shane came by during shift change. I told him about hearing my mother's voice. He didn't even react, just wiped blood off the control panel with an old rag. "That means they're learning you," he said. He tossed the rag into a bucket, and then he looked directly at me through cigarette smoke and said, "You know they want your soul first. But if they can't get that, they'll settle for killing you."
Base 44 super agents. The next thing you can't live without. No setup. Just say hello.
Rule 3. Only enter the dog and cat area of the Ghost Animal Park. If the Demon Drop was the most dangerous ride in Disneyland, Ohio, then the Ghost Animal Park was probably the strangest place. It sat near the far western edge beside the old Midway section, where most of the lights were dimmer and the music sounded older. Everything over there felt quieter, less crowded too. Most guests avoided it, not because they were scared, because a lot of the dead came there for personal reasons. You could feel it immediately when you walked in. The entrance looked like one of those old zoo gates from the 50s. Rusted green metal archway, wooden signs, fake rock walls, the smell of wet grass drifting through the fog. Except none of the animals inside were alive. The first time I entered the place, I honestly thought it was kind of beautiful. At least the dog and cat section was. That was the safe area. The only safe area. The park itself split into different trails connected by low fences and narrow concrete paths. Old carnival lanterns hung from trees overhead, casting soft yellow light through the fog. Signs pointed toward different sections. Aviary, deer trail, monkey house, small mammals. And then one giant red sign near the employee gate. Employees are only permitted inside the dog and cat area. Underneath it, somebody had spray painted, "No exceptions." Craig brought me there around 2 a.m. during one of my later shifts. "Easy assignment tonight," he said. "Just refill water bowls and keep guests out of the restricted areas." And compared to the Demon Drop, it honestly sounded relaxing. And for a while, it was. The dog and cat section looked almost normal. Ghost dogs ran through open grassy areas, chasing glowing tennis balls. Cats slept on benches beside dead guests. Some of the animals looked transparent.
Jack. You guys hear me? I'm hoping so. Double check.
While others looked almost completely real except for glowing eyes. And unlike most places in Disneyland, Ohio, that area actually felt warm, comfortable. I watched an old woman kneel beside a golden retriever near the fence line for almost 10 minutes while just petting its head. The dog wagged its tail the entire time.
You guys hear me at all? Check
Another
1
ghost
2.
cat
Check 1
curled up
2.
in the
Check
lap
1
of a little
2.
dead
Check
girl
check
sitting
check.
beneath one of the fake trees while her parents smiled nearby. You could tell some of these people had missed their pets more than anything. Craig leaned against the fence, smoking while watching him. "You see? Not everything here is awful," he said. And then a huge black ghost dog walked directly through another guest and dropped a slobbery tennis ball at my feet. I stared at it. The dog barked once. Craig sighed. "You throw it or he'll keep bothering you." So I threw the ball. Then the dog sprinted after it happily into the fog. I made the mistake later of asking about the other sections. Craig immediately stopped smiling. "Hey, you stay out of them." "Why?" "Because they ain't friendly," he said. Later that night, I found out exactly what he meant. Around 3 a.m., one of the maintenance lights near the restricted trail started flickering on and off. Shane radioed us, saying guests were complaining. Handed me a flashlight. "All right, come on." We walked deeper into the animal park, past the dog and cat area, toward the restricted trails, and the atmosphere changed immediately. The farther we walked, the quieter things got. No barking or purring, no happy guest, just distant scratching sounds somewhere in the darkness. The deer enclosure came first. I only saw shapes moving between trees, but whatever those ghost deer were, they looked wrong. Their eyes reflected bright white in the dark, and their legs bent oddly when they moved. Past that was the aviary. I heard wings flapping overhead, hundreds of them. But when I looked up, I couldn't see anything above the fog. Then we reached the squirrel section, and even Craig slowed down there. The enclosure itself was huge. Entire artificial forest surrounded by chain link fencing nearly 15 feet tall. Trees packed tightly together inside with fog hanging low across the ground. At first I didn't see anything. And then the eyes opened. Hundreds of tiny glowing eyes all over the trees, just watching us. Tiny scratching noises echoed everywhere. Craig immediately kept walking. "Don't stop," he said quietly. "What's wrong with them?" I whispered. "No idea," he said. One squirrel suddenly darted down a tree trunk so fast I barely tracked it with the flashlight. It didn't move like a normal squirrel, and when the flashlight hit its face, I almost dropped the light. Its teeth looked almost human. Long, flat front teeth stained dark around the gums. The thing clung upside down to the fence, staring directly at us, while its tail twitched violently behind it. Craig grabbed my jacket. "Keep moving." We reached the broken maintenance light near the far side of the enclosure. While Craig worked on a panel, I kept hearing movement in the trees behind me. Constant movement. Branches shaking, tiny little claws scratching bark. And then something hit the fence hard enough to rattle it. I spun around, and at least 30 squirrels clung to the chain link staring at me. I backed away instinctively. Craig didn't even turn around from the maintenance panel. "I told you not to stop." The second the light came back on overhead, the squirrels scattered instantly into the darkness. Every branch in the enclosure shook at once. Then everything went quiet again. As we walked back toward the safe area, I finally asked the obvious question. "What the hell happened to those squirrels?" Craig lit another cigarette. "Nobody knows." About halfway back through the trails, he finally told me about Jessica Mitchell. Jessica worked park maintenance around 5 years earlier. Young girl, 22 maybe. Apparently she didn't believe the squirrel stories. Most new employees didn't at first. According to Craig, Another worker dared her to step into the enclosure during cleanup, just for a minute. Jessica climbed the fence after closing, made it about 15 feet inside before they attacked her. Craig said the screaming brought half the maintenance crew running. By the time they pulled her back out, she was covered in bites. She survive? I asked. Craig nodded slowly. Technically. A few nights later, I actually met her. She still worked there, sort of. Jessica handled trash collection near the Midway now. Long sleeves every night, no matter the temperature. Yellow employee jacket zipped all the way to her throat. They still follow me home sometimes, she said. And then she walked away before I could ask anything. And after that conversation, I took Rule 3 very seriously. Rule 4. Never wear religious items around demons, vampires, or banshees. The rule sounded ridiculous to me at first. Not because of the monsters. By that point, I already accepted monsters were real. But because Disneyland, Ohio, operated like customer service. That was the weird part. The park didn't want fights or panic, didn't want angry guests, especially not angry dead guests. And according to Shane, nothing upset certain creatures faster than religious items. Crosses, rosaries, saint medals, scripture shirts, anything like that. Demons hated them. Vampires hated them. Banshees absolutely hated them. And for some reason, mummies didn't care at all. Craig once asked an old mummy in the smoking area about it. The mummy just shrugged and said, "Different department." The first time I saw Rule 4 become a problem happened near the food court around 1 a.m. A new employee named Tyler forgot to remove a silver cross necklace before his shift. Small thing too, barely visible. But the second he walked onto the Midway, nearby demons immediately noticed it. I watched one demon physically recoil beside a pretzel stand. Tall thing wearing a stained business suit with burned skin stretched tight across its face. It pointed directly at Tyler's necklace, and then it started screaming, like somebody blasted floodlights into its eyes. Other guests started reacting too. A vampire woman near the carousel suddenly doubled over, vomiting black liquid onto the pavement, while her husband hissed at the employees nearby. And then the banshees started wailing. You could hear it across the entire park. Long, shrieking cries echoing through the fog while rides slowed overhead. One old banshee woman stumbled against a popcorn cart, clutching her chest. "My heart! My heart!" Shane moved fast after that. Probably faster than I'd ever seen him move. He grabbed Tyler by the jacket and dragged him backstage while demons shouted behind us across the Midway. Guests started leaving rides. Fog thickened everywhere. One vampire family actually stormed out through the front gates, hissing at employees, while security tried calming them down. And the entire time, Tyler kept saying, "It's just a cross, what's the big deal?" And that's when Shane finally lost his temper. He shoved Tyler against the backstage wall hard enough to rattle the pipes. "If you insult the guest, they won't come back." That line stuck with me. Not they'll kill you, not they're dangerous. The problem in this case was business. Disneyland, Ohio operated like a real amusement park first. Everything else second. A few minutes later, I saw the old banshee woman again near the employee tunnel entrance. She stared directly at Tyler's necklace while black tears rolled from her eyes. And then she turned and disappeared into the fog beside the Midway. Afterwards, Shane made Tyler remove the necklace completely before letting him back onto the floor. And honestly, the second he removed it, the park calmed down immediately.
In this video, I'm going to be making a 3D game in just 1 hour. But all the 3D assets in the game will be created by Hitum 3D, who have sponsored this video. We're going to be using Hitum 3D to generate 3D models from images, and then we're going to be importing them 3D models into Unity and making a game with them. So here we are in Hitum 3D. Hitum 3D is an image to 3D tool. So all you have to do is upload your image here, click generate, and it'll generate a 3D model. So the game we're going to be making is a first-person shooter game, and we need to generate 3 different assets for our game. We need to generate the gun, which we've got here, and we're also going to be generating an enemy and a building for the game. So once these models are generated, we're going to import them to Unity and try to create a game. But first of all, we've imported our gun here, and all we have to do is go ahead and click generate. And as you can see here, our 3D model has been generated. So it's generated the reference image of the gun pretty accurately, as you can see, and everything looks pretty high quality. So as you can imagine, this would work perfectly for an FPS game. I just want to go ahead and download this 3D model so I can use it in Unity. Alright, so as you can see here, we have a template in Unity for an FPS game, and the FPS has already been programmed for us. As you can see, we can move around, we can shoot, and it all works. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to add in the model we received from Hitum 3D and basically make this gun model our new gun model from Hitum 3D. And as you can see, we've been able to import our new 3D gun model into our game, and the gun model really works well for an FPS game. As you can see, we can shoot, and there we go. Alright, so now we've got our enemy image here, and we're going to see what happens if we try to generate this image. So let's click generate, and there we go. Our 3D enemy has been rendered. As you can see, this is what the enemy looks like, and there we go. We can also go ahead and download this and import that to our game.
Rule 5. Never accept a wish from Mikey Mouse. Now, I didn't notice Mikey Mouse my first few nights working at Disneyland, Ohio. Not really. I saw him, obviously, everybody did. But at first I figured he was just another mascot wandering around the park. A weird mascot, yeah, but still a mascot. And that changed the first time I saw a demon walk the other direction to avoid him. Happened near the castle around 2 a.m. Fog rolled low across the midway, while old carnival music echoed through the speakers. Ghost families wandered between rides carrying popcorn and stuffed animals, while fireworks burst silently somewhere above Lake Erie. And standing near the castle bridge was Mikey. Big round black ears, white gloves, old black and white cartoon face. Not Mickey, exactly. Older than that. Like the original version before somebody cleaned it up for kids. The costume looked ancient too. Faded fabric, cracks running across the giant's smile, water stains down the sleeves like he'd spent years standing in rain and lake water. And unlike the other mascots in the park, Mikey barely moved. That night I watched a tall demon in a red suit walking toward the castle suddenly stop the second it noticed Mikey standing near the bridge. The demon immediately lowered its eyes and turned around. Didn't hiss or laugh, just left fast. And that bothered me more than anything else I'd seen there, because demons at Disneyland, Ohio acted scared of almost nothing. A few nights later, I finally asked Craig about him, and Craig stopped walking immediately. Yeah, don't talk to Mikey if he talks to you first. Why? Craig stared toward the castle. Because Mikey grants wishes. And Craig saw the look on my face immediately. Oh, you think I'm joking? A little. Craig lit another cigarette. Then he pointed toward an older ghost sitting alone near the food court. I'd seen him before, late 60s maybe. Brown jacket, old baseball cap, always sitting alone every night near the castle, staring into space. That's Walter, Craig said. He used to come here with his wife. What happened? Well, she died, and Walter asked Mikey for one more night with her, he said. And? I asked. Craig stared at him silently for a few seconds before answering. He got it, Craig replied. He went on to tell me that at exactly 3:15 every night, Walter's wife appeared wherever he was. Didn't matter where. Food court, bathroom, parking lot, employee tunnel once. She always found him. And every single night, Walter locked himself inside somewhere and waited for the 15 minutes to end. The first time I saw it happen, I finally understood why. Walter was sitting alone near the food court when the clock hit 3:15. The lights around the midway flickered once. And then she appeared, standing beside the table. At first I thought she looked normal. And then she turned toward him, and half her jaw was missing. "Walter," she said. One eye hung crooked and gray inside the socket. Maggots crawled slowly through her hair and around the empty flesh beneath her cheek. Water dripped constantly from her dress onto the concrete. And she looked furious. Walter immediately stood so fast he knocked over his chair, and then he practically ran into the nearby employee bathroom and slammed the door shut. A second later, something hit the other side hard enough to shake the walls. Then another hit, and another. Guests nearby didn't even react. Like this happened every night. "We gonna do something?" I asked. He's probably fine," Craig said. And for 15 straight minutes, the thing that used to be Walter's wife circled the bathroom entrance, scratching the walls, slamming into the door, making horrible, wet, choking noises
The moment she stepped in, she had all the power and space to live a life I might narrate.
Seriously?
The all-new Audi Q3.
Boot.dev is a platform for anyone looking to master backend web development, and it's designed to keep you engaged by taking cues from.
There's a new GPU company in the US that wants to compete with NVIDIA and has just made its first working prototypes of its code. Bolt is run by this guy, Darwesh Singh, and his ambition to compete with the $5 trillion giant targets areas that NVIDIA has been abandoning, as NVIDIA has pursued data centers instead over the past year.
Our intention is to make this card available to as many people as possible. We don't want to make a super high-end exotic card that nobody can buy.
Right.
That's not a good approach to the market at all.
Bolt's render of their GPU, which has silicon code simulation running,